Welcome to the Soulbody Wholeness Podcast.
Each episode is a living, breathing transmission. Together, we will explore deep, nuanced, and controversial topics of the soul. Welcome to your community of sensitive seekers and deep feelers.
Welcome back, Goldsbrand.
All right, welcome to the show, dear listeners. My name is Joshua, and I am joined by a very special guest today. And I don't know if I would call her an old friend or maybe an old friend from many lifetimes, but I met today's guest in Asheville, North Carolina, and I don't know, maybe a year later or something in my travels, I actually worked with today's guest, which was such a powerful journey for me. And I feel like we have this soul kinship. We connect with each other on social media and sometimes through the phone portal. So I'm really excited for today's conversation because I'm actually going to get to learn a lot about today's guest, who I haven't named, I've kept mysterious. So, without further ado, I introduce Brooke Underwood. Welcome to the Soulbody Wholeness Podcast.
Thank you for having me, Josh and all.
Yeah, so instead of doing an introduction to Brooke's work, we're kind of going to let that breathe and express itself through this conversation. But before we do that, it is tradition, even though I've only had a couple of episodes, it's going to be tradition that I invite us all into just a moment of presence and coming into connection in the shared field and the shared resonance. So if you're not multitasking, if you're not driving, I invite you to just take a moment and close your eyes. Feel your feet on the ground, on the shoes, on whatever surface that they're on. Just feeling your feet rooting deep down into the earth, deep, deep down into the root chakra of the earth, to the center. And let's all draw one breath in together from the center of the earth, inhaling, drawing in into the body, and letting it all go. Okay. So with that, I thought I would ask Brooke, what is your story to get to where you're at right now in the flavor of your Dharma, your soul purpose? And I know that's your work, your work as a coach and all the different delivery methods. I know you're a very powerful healer and priestess and all of these archetypes. And I'm very curious your hero's journey, soul initiation to get to this point. And yeah, obviously you can answer that however you feel called.
Let me tune in.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like it began with a loss of fire, a loss of that element in my life. When I transitioned from high school into college and my passion for dance and my need for dance and movement was being obstructed. I didn't get into a university that I wanted to be on the dance team, and I had an injury that prevented me from moving forward in that career and other obstacles and starting up my own dance team at the university I went to. And I felt the first major disconnection with my soul and who I was. And the descent began coincidingly with a parent going to prison with a cancer diagnosis and another parent starting her descent of dementia early on. And that was an early initiation that I'm very grateful that I decided to feel through it and ask the questions of what else? What else and how can I thrive in this peculiar karma, this peculiar, I didn't have the word for karma back then, but this peculiar family constellation. I also didn't have that word back then. And find my fire and find how I can move through what feels like really oppressive waters.
Can I ask you something? Yeah, in that moment, how did you have the insight to feel your way through that descent, through that threshold, especially at that age?
I do feel it's because of my gift, my training in dance, and already accessing some levels of truth and sensation. And I did have a kind of relationship with God at that time as well. And it just felt like I've had to surrender in different ways before all of that hit the fan. And it was just asking me to surrender in this new way that still was honoring some of my aspirations to study abroad, to graduate early, to pursue like what really is going to be purpose driven. That type of um, beautiful nurturance was in my family in different ways of, find what makes you feel alive and find what is purpose oriented so you can serve. So I think that question held me too.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very profound at that age to already have had a practice of surrender and a passion, and to be encouraged into a passion that was able to help you discern truth. I think that's pretty spectacular to have that 18, 19 years old.
I will have to say, right before I turned 18 was when I went on my first psychedelic journey with LSD.
That
That
might have helped.
definitely helped. And it also was the beginning of like this mystical understanding of, okay, there really is a bigger picture to energy, to timing, to manifestation. Because the day after I went on this big journey and I had these, connection points made and my energy body shifted, the next day was when my brother sat me down and said, Dad's really sick. He has terminal diagnosis. And I'm not supposed to tell you, but I'm telling you, so keep it quiet. And
Whoa, that's a huge, yeah, I mean, that's a lot to hold, the tension point of that.
yes, it was. So it's like the energy body opened up so much, and then all of a sudden the contraction was right next to it. And like there has to be some meaning here. Like there's something here. Like, what is this mythic turning point in my life? And I think just having that moment of reckoning continued to unfold, where I would observe more of these moments of reckoning that I would take note as more or less, a poet at that time.
How are you feeling in this moment, sharing that?
It feels refreshing. Yeah, it feels refreshing. It feels far away, but at the same time, I think it's um, important to presence the beginnings, the roots, the importance of just those threshold moments in our lives.
Yeah. Yeah, one of my first threshold moments was a marriage coming apart at a very young age, at 21. Married at 21 and coming apart by 22. And yeah, that was my first threshold, like the deep realization of the uncomfortable truth of a moment. So, yeah, is there another iteration or continuation of this story?
I would say it gave me that just desire to get to the bottom of things, and especially to get to the bottom of healing suppressed trauma that I didn't realize that I had, as all of that erupted that year. Seeking help for the first time, admitting that I needed help. I was the classic overachiever, perfect golden trophy child. My siblings had a lot of their difficulties, and I was the youngest, so I had to break down that identity and, um, as I said, break down this identity. The construction's breaking down things, like, outside my window right now. It's just how the world communicates.
It's probably unrelated, Brooke.
And it got me to do really challenging things because I wanted to feel good. I think I have a low pain tolerance, or I'm always sensitive to pain, or I was always sensitive to pain. And it was all of a sudden I had to address where I was numbing my sensitivity to pain. So I started with um, somatic-based dance therapy and traveling to New York, to Chicago, to LA, making my base in Missouri, where I'm from, to learn from these different somatic-oriented dance therapists and experimental dance, to start just rewriting my body and my fascia and my perception of my trauma and my perception of my limitations in the studio, in the body, in ritual and community with other body dance oriented people. And that really became my foundation, is in the weaving, the continuum weaving of, oh, Brooke moves into hypnosis. She gets trained in hypnosis. Oh, well, she was going through hypnotic ritual invitations in these dance studios there in her early 20s. And the somatic oriented coaching I do today, it all started because of this um, phase of discovery, because I was sick of being sick.
Yeah, a very resonant story for many of us, that's sick of being sick and just wanting to get to the bottom of it. And through the trials and tribulations of that process, which so many of us want to be like, okay, I committed to the thing, to my healing, and now it should be healed. It should be, and then I have the answer and I can go back to doing what I was doing. And often, if we're meant to be healers, it doesn't go that easily and simply. It becomes very complex and nuanced and spirals. And there's many layers of growth and mastery. And it's like, at some point, we realize, oh, we've been being trained and initiated the entire time. And once we have that realization, we turn towards that process, then paradoxically, we start to heal quicker. And the things that we wanted, because we're not resisting the process so much, we're like, it's like, oh, this is a part of my curriculum.
Mm.
There's that shift that happens. And for me, that shift has been life-changing. And speaking of life-changing perspective shifts, you spoke to, a big part of this journey early on was rewriting some of your perspectives and just your perspectives with maybe the trauma or the limitations or the victim.
hmm
Would you be willing to speak a little bit more about some of the specific perspective shifts you were experiencing?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I think it came down to shifting my relationship to time, right? And just like time is on sky. Time is abundant. Time is my friend. Just coming into the present moment with the body as much as possible and feeling just the freedom of being open awareness in this bodily experience started then to shift my mindset around, some of my fears, some of my anxieties, all of my good girl conditioning and like need to uh, be the best, need to take care of myself. No one else is going to do it, all these things. So just reorienting my body to space and time differently was a big shift. And then, of course, years down the road, have an initiation with the dark mother, Kali, and Kali is time. So that was another mythic, oh, I see. She has been with me this whole time.
Can you explain that a little bit more for me and listeners? The Kali Mother time and your personal connection.
So I had started a meditation practice alongside my dance discovery. I went to a 10-day Vipassana and had some peculiar openings and confusing sensations and intuitions come through that also gave me.
You said a Vipassana meditation retreat, a 10-day?
Yes. And it was about a year after that, I was meditating at home and I heard clairaudiently, God is Black. God is a Black woman. And I thought, interesting. Okay. And I researched it and I looked up Black mother, goddess, woman, and I got the Black Madonna that I had no idea about existed. And then I found out about Kali, which I also had no idea existed. And then all of a sudden I found the divine feminine that I had no idea existed up until that point. And I went deep. I just thought, whoa, what? There's a feminine divine like relationship I can cultivate with God and that I haven't had, or it hasn't come to my awareness. I thought I was going to become a minister at that time or go into like Unitarian ministry, things like this. It just blew me open that I could be connected to the feminine consciousness of God. And with that, Kali specifically, her name means time, Kal. And so being kind of one with time can open us up to being not so attached to time. And there's a few other panderings we can go around that concept, but she ultimately gets you out of being stuck in the past and then being stuck in the
Wow.
future. So much of
Wow.
our trauma, right, is congested from the past, and then our anxiety is about the future, and she just cuts it all away and says, you are enough, you are loved, and you're here to be and to enjoy life as much as possible and serve.
So powerful. I really got a visual of like the slicing on the past, the future. And it's like, this is all that's left, severing what's not real. It stops that looping. And it's like, oh, I'm right here. Yeah. So I'm curious, how is your specifically like relationship with time? I kind of heard it, but I'm like curious about like, because I think it's really helpful for people to hear some of the inner workings of the neuroses programming patterns that so many of us have been running most of our lives.
I was very caught up in nostalgia. I was very caught up in just time that was lost, time that was taken away. And I worked through those memories that I needed to honor and I needed to feel in order to process them, to just artfully bring them closer to my heart, where before it just wasn't accessible for me to really digest those experiences. So that has been a pathway, starting with another delivery. I love that you said delivery mechanism earlier. A delivery mechanism of my own sole purpose was through memoir writing. So all of a sudden I could start like, oh, this memory. Oh, you know what? I have all these emotions and feelings about this memory and these longings and, grief of losing grandparents and grief of just my own parents and grief of family. And I was able to utilize that container of writing to get out of so much of just the feeling of depression around the good is already gone. Or what else is there? When you have a lot of family um, stuff happen, it can feel like any of the good stuff is just like you want to hold on to it so deeply. And so the more I was able to cultivate gratitude and beauty and make art of it, make meaning of it, I was able to shift more into looking forward to my life. But I also had to work that other future neuroses around, my gosh, my age. My gosh, I need to have a house, I was looking to buy a house when I was 21. All these things of like, I need to be established. I need to prove my worth. I need to, make sure I'm taken care of because what could happen? Like I've had all this trauma. So like, surely more is to come.
You have to protect, you have to create protection, security so this thing doesn't happen again.
Exactly, exactly. And that was the big the bigger rock for me was where I can then find artfulness and shifting my perception around moving forward in time because everyone around me and my environment was also feeding those neuroses, feeding that anxiety about not having enough, about the other shoe dropping and things like this. So I started to kind of shift into people who had a consciousness of trust so that I could start building this consciousness of trust and then just doing trust experiments of, okay, let me go on a little pilgrimage over here. I may not have much money when I return, but I'm going to trust that it's going to come. I'm going to I'm going to see how this goes. And then I would increase the risk to build the trust and to build like my body really trusting that everything's going to work out no matter what. Even if I got sick, even if I got injured, even if whatever didn't work out, it's still going to be okay. So I had to build that trust, resiliency muscle by just exposing myself into seemingly vulnerable environments for my mind at the time. And that's also a gift of hypnosis is guiding people into ways they can do positive exposure therapy for themselves to build their capacity.
Yeah, beautifully said. Otherwise known as titration, like just a little bit more. And so much of that word and qualities of are really entangled with trauma healing in the lens of, nervous system regulation, and like a hyper focus on, working with the nervous system, bottom up sensation, window of tolerance, like just going a little bit past what we previously believed was possible, which brought up a lot of sensation in our body. We're building our capacity to hold more sensation in our body. And that's all super important and beautiful. And there's something deeper you're speaking to, which is you're building at the time your foundational trust in God, in the natural unfolding of life, which is a shift from creating the stability and the structure and the safety using our mind and our external circumstances to try to kind of orchestrate and architect this safety. And as you and I know, that's a never ending looping suffering game. It's very limited what the mind can actually do to create real fundamental safety, which is entangled with sense of belonging and trust, right? And so without being anchored in God, which is the unknown, it's going to be it's going to be impossible actually to feel fully safe in your nervous system, in your body on this planet. Would you agree?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So it just sounds like you were, as I have, done the same thing, through many trials and tribulations of experiment. Like, okay, this is terrifying in some ways to my mind, but I need to prove to myself that I'm going to be okay, because I can't keep living in this false prison of security that I've created for myself that's based off of the trauma content of my past.
Mhm.
And sometimes even when we heal, it's like if we don't change something and like put that integrated wisdom into the world, it's like it's still easy to stay in some of those old belief systems. It's like I really would not have been able to sell my things and become nomadic 10 years ago, but I could, 3, 4 years ago, like that I had the capacity, but I didn't know until I did it. It's really scary. And it sounds like you did some very similar experiments.
I did. And reflecting on my origin story, I got to give it to dance teachers early on in the subtle messages of just like pushing the body beyond what you think is possible. And I think anyone with athletic training, we receive, if we have great trainers and coaches, teachers around us, we receive this permission to like take the body further and to take sensation further, that I always felt like it was a positive thing. So I don't recall it having a negative affect in my life, or if I got injured, it was still like, I want to try again. So whatever those early programmings that I had, also I have to give gratitude and thanks for those that planted those seeds, and I certainly intentionally plant those seeds of keep going, keep pursuing, keep exploring, and keep testing your body as much as possible, because I think that's where we do feel the true freedom. And so the external freedom, kind of this, okay, well, let's see how much I can feel free in an unfree world. How much can I expand to feel more freedom with my time, right? Freedom with my loved one, freedom to
Yeah.
express, freedom to create. But it really, we both know, comes down to the body's freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that segues beautifully because, I've had maybe a more nuanced, multidimensional curriculum for pushing the body. I had plenty of those overly masculinized programming codes for pushing the body, and actually pushing the body and getting entangled in like, I should be able to do this because all of these other people do it. It's like when there's comparison, that's a real problem. And you had mentioned having this big coming home moment in your journey with Kali and just the divine feminine. It's like, whoa. And yeah, I'm curious about that part of your story, how that, shifted some of your masculine understandings slash upgraded and integrated them.
It felt like I could really immerse myself with God energy or God consciousness, with meeting Kali and meeting this form of divinity that on the outside looks to any Westerner demonic. She's has a truly a demonic energy to her, but not demonic in a negative way, but demonic in her ferocious and licking up all our negativity and our trauma so that we can be liberated. And just really going into, because of the gift of a teacher, traditional Tantra teacher connected to Kali, immersed in the actual embodiment of her, and being around a community that was like, yeah, let's embody the mother. What's a radical idea from this little lady from middle Missouri kind of thing. And
That's where your teacher
No,
was?
she was from
Or-
California, but just,
Okay. You were the little lady from
yes.
Missouri.
So this,
Yeah.
part of my mythic journey, as I'm sure all of us, is the black sheep and the obscurity of our unique karmas that we get to reveal to ourselves and to the world if we choose. Usually it gets exposed in some way or other. So we have to be ready for that transition of a witnessing that may or may not include validation. So it's through these embodiment practices with other women, particularly, that completely oriented my understanding of what was the expression of my natural embodied feminine essence and what was the mystery school of the female body and the divinity of that and the oracular, intuitive opportunities of being in this relationship with the feminine.
Yeah. So was that a period of some big activation of your intuition, psychism,
Oh,
oracular
oh yeah,
abilities?
this is a good one because this is when things got real weird.
Excellent. Let's go.
So it was within a year of having this message, God is a Black woman, and me starting to build a relationship with Kali, that I just decided to go to the local Kundalini yoga center in Chicago and put up my little card at the Friday night healers event to start doing psychic readings off the cuff. I just made a decision. No one said you should do this, you'd be great at this. I just made a decision. And I said, I feel this channeling ability and I'm going to put it into practice. And they're not asking for references. I'm just going to show up. And that was the beginning of, it's been 10 years since that happened. It was in 2015. There was a big astrological transit that happened that I could reflect on. And of course, that was the time to get freaky. That was the time to just name
Mm,
it, to be it,
mm,
to start becoming it on a tangible way to meet other people. Because it felt like I couldn't keep this energy. You alluded to this earlier. Like I couldn't keep this together, like inside of me. Like it needed to come out. I needed to be in the mirror with someone else and to just test my hypotheses of I'm an intuitive person. So let's see, like, let's get some feedback. And so began my career.
mm. Was there anything particularly interesting that you'd like to share about that happened that night?
I met a really profound soul sister. She sat with me. Um, I had a message for her that came through that really shifted her life, and it resonated with her. And I met either that night or that around that time, I met someone that I would have a collaboration together. We would do channeling together for his particular channeling community. And that was also an adventure. And I think it was the beginning of, yeah, just being more public on social media and letting people know I do intuitive readings, that I'm not just, at the time, I'd probably been a year and a half that I became a health coach, and that was interesting to me, but it wasn't hitting the soul. And when I just decided to go for it, I got a lot of um, interesting people at the very beginning that reflected, my own karmas in certain ways that I started to think, this whole like helping people and organically putting my message out there that I'm here really attracts this deeper resonance. And we're all bringing each other home and we're all having a important affect on each other, and that deep intimacy that I didn't have before with, strangers was being built. And that was something that just my heart felt so like, oh my God, life feels so much richer. I can just drop in with people and cut to the chase. They want me to, and I want to. I don't have to
Mm,
pretend to like small talk or not say, that's really interesting that this is showing up for you and this is over here. I could just be myself.
mm, yeah. So it sounds like that was a very big coming home phase, being yourself and getting right to the point and being able to even just be seen in your natural soul-based gifts. It's pretty massive. And it happened to you so young, compared to I think a lot of people. So that's pretty cool. Okay. So we're at this point in your story 10 years ago, right? Like having the openings. Where you're at now, like tuning into, I don't even know what the flavor of your business is at this point. We worked together over a year ago and super powerful hypnosis sessions and Vedic astrology reading for me, which continues to, like, I think back to that reading, semi often. I'm like, it was so on point. Yeah, wherever you're at now in your journey, so like another chapter of the story that feels really relevant and juicy to share.
Mm. I It does feel significant, the 10-year marker, and I'm seeing a lot of the experimentation I've had since going full time 5 years ago. It's coming into a solidification process and an even deeper clarity of my message, of whom I'm here to serve, and it's driving me back into the feminine divine and the myths and stories that I've accumulated, that I've shared in readings over the years, and the myths that I also have received from my clients, guiding them in hypnosis to free up these suppressed patterns. And it just feels like I'm a guardian in some ways of stories. And that was something that I knew was part of my path. That, yes, dance was part of my path, but it was always storytelling through the body, and it was storytelling through written word. And I feel blessed to have gathered so many stories to now be able to really trust what I know to be true in change work and changing our own story arcs, changing our own mythos, and opening up to um, others' mythos and change works, and being in this cultural change that we're a part of. It's enlivening to know and to be it feels like on the forefront of working with people in their 20s, people in their 70s, of everyone is wanting more truth, more embodiment. They're wanting to expand. They're wanting to connect. They're wanting to feel. They're wanting to experience love through their body. And I want to be more bold and brazen in how I communicate the potency of this time and what I've observed in my work.
Yeah. So taking a side trip here, do you have like the collective download that you can share with us of why that's happening? Why is there such a massive spectrum of humans walking towards the path of expansion and healing trauma at a somatic level? And what's happening? It's happening in the stars.
Yeah, I mean, the the big picture, I think when I tune into Kali, it's just that this is part of an important cycle of consciousness that we've all agreed to move through. And the more that we can feel empowered about it the more that we can feel that there's a divine, bigger meaning, the more
That's the story,
that's the
right?
story.
Like
Yeah.
that's the myth change.
Yeah, the myth
Yeah.
change, and to really embrace the element that Kali also connects us to, which is destruction and dissolution and the chaos energy. And how I think those, who are suffering the most with the instability of the world and the changing of the economy and all these vulnerabilities we're facing on the planet and the natural world as well, get to now see how they can come even deeper into their bodies and trust that it is all orchestrating in some larger reason that is outside of our control. Um, so in terms of the technicalities of the planets, there's a lot of breakdowns of that. I try not to specialize on that because I find that it gets first me into my mind a lot, and then it gets other people into their minds a lot. So I try to utilize astrology directly to break down fear patterns and to bring forth the jewels in the birth chart and the jewels in awareness and in one's purpose to be so just knowing themselves, knowing who they are, knowing that they can work within the limitations, whatever they are, and then go for it, whether that's actually taking big action or it's just being with it.
Yeah, so beautifully said. It really feels like an amalgamation. It's like very symbolic of your personal share. It's like as these external things begin to dissolve, it's like, where else can we go? We can keep doubling down on external, and that's just going to create more chaos. At some point, we realize we have to surrender and we have to go within and we have to find safety in our bodies despite the external circumstance. There's literally nowhere else to go at some point of searching. And so I feel like that's been my path. That's how you shared it as your path. And so that's just becoming the collective path as more and more destruction is taking root. And, Kali also helping you to destroy the past, destroy the future, and to be here now. She's really doing that for others because that is the only way to find healing and safety is to let go of the past, let go of constructing what you think will give you safety in the future, and to find that safety, that trust, that belonging with exactly where you find yourself in this moment.
Which is so beautiful to wax poetically about, right? And to just witness this wisdom we both earned at an embodied level, but to work on this every single day.
It's
It's
massive.
massive. It's a whole inner gymnasium where it's just like you're working out how you feel about yourself. You're working out how you're seeing the truth of what is. You're also working out on not denying your desires, right? Because that's a fallacy of kind of some spiritual teachings. It's just transcending any desires and okay, well, what desires actually are my true appetite and are for me in this season of my life? Like, how can I play to them? How
Or
can I take a little more action with them? But to be non attached, but to still honor myself that I have these desires and these tastes. Wow, the world is going through this huge shift, right? Before I would have thought I was
Mhm.
just some selfish, self conceited lady to be thinking so much about herself and giving herself so much leeway to create and to enjoy her life, right? I was conditioned around, you got to sacrifice, you got to suffer, you got to put others before you. Um, and that in and of itself is like an element of abundance consciousness that the mother contains. As she contains destruction and deprivation, she also contains endless growth and opportunity and expansion. So whatever framework, mythic framework can get us into this awareness, I think, the better, so that we can come back into more enjoying the moment instead of fearing or having too much hunger for something else.
Hmm. Yeah, very beautifully said. And there's so much nuance into all of the dimensions you just traversed, like desire. It's like whether it's good or it's bad. Well, who are you rooted in as your identity? Are you completely identified with the personality complex that got created through all of the traumas of your life and all of the strategies that you constructed in order to find safety? Well, those desires probably need to be dissolved at some point. Like, those really need to be annihilated. They really need to be surrendered. But if you have found yourself at a place in your life that I feel like both of us have, where we are identified much more with our soul and what I'll call a mature and developed sense of egoic identity, because the ego is not bad. The ego is not good. The ego can be amazing. The ego can be completely subservient and in love with the soul. There's a healthy, mature form of the ego that, I don't know if we ever get to a place where it's just that in a binary sense of like unhealed, healed, but it's resourced in enough of the work that it's done and trust in soul and trust in God that it begins trusting the process just more and more and more. It becomes easy to surrender. And then all of a sudden, my desires start aligning with the desires of
Mm-hmm.
God, because I am aligned with my soul, which is a fractal expression of the
Mm-hmm.
one. So they can't be different. So my desires are not something to demonize anymore. Not that maybe they should have ever been demonized, but there's all of these nuanced, subtle differences that, as you spoke to before, of like, yeah, we're just talking about this stuff, like you just do it. It's like, it's taken me so many massive iterations and spirals to get here in true shifts in my center of gravity of who I believe myself to be. This conversation, if I was listening to it 5 years ago with all my distortion filters from my unhealed trauma, I would have been like, yeah, that sounds nice. But like, I would have had all this skepticism, confusion, or I would have been trying to embody it before I'm
Mm-hmm.
ready. I hadn't gone through my initiations to get to this point where I'm
Mm-hmm.
talking about this. So I'm always mindful of talking about these things because they can be very
Mm-hmm.
conceptual to people. And then concepts create constructs. And you're really going to be at your best when you can surrender the concepts and just stick to the feeling. Like, I feel drawn to this truth. So I'm going to follow that, which is an inner pointer, an inner compass, versus creating like, it means this, and this to have this attained level of consciousness. That's where we can sort of get ourselves in trouble and I've done it many times. Like, this is the concept, it means this. And then I stop once I'm like, I don't know if I want that, because I've conceptualized something that I've never actually embodied or experienced.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I wrote about this on my Substack recently, just the limitations of literacy and the written word and reading and digesting information in that way. That's we that's
Mm,
still so new to human consciousness. And how brilliant it
yeah.
is to use our minds, and I call it the head. And yet it's heart, it's belly, it's diving into this primal nature of existing and being in relationship, right, to everything around us, and not being intimidated or fearing that relationship, but going towards it. Going towards it, and I think the initiations we both hold people through, that gives them the space to enact their own inner gymnasium and discover the truth for themselves. And that's part of the reason I shifted from just doing readings for people within, you know, almost immediately, a year or two in, I just felt, oh, there has to be something else because of the codependency that was being created of the, oh, I just want to hear where I'm at. I want to hear information here. I want to talk to my grandfather, things like this. And it's just like, this doesn't alive
Mm-hmm.
me. This drains
That
me.
yeah. Yeah, I mean that's just what we're speaking to. It's at a certain level of consciousness trying to play with these what they're making into concepts, these cities, these powers, these like, versus going through maybe just a chop wood, carry water. You just need to sit and meditate and focus on your breath. And then once you attain these spiritual powers, they're understood not at a conceptual level, but they're embodied and they're all in support of, the higher awakening, the higher purpose, the evolution of consciousness itself. It's all in service to
Mhm,
God, right?
mhm. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I hear that shift for you and that reflection of like, I don't want to keep pandering or continuing to support people at this level. They actually need to do some deep inner work to attain another level before we go into these deep spiritual
yeah,
teachings.
yeah, yeah. And that has developed into this integrated practice of astrology and hypnosis that I'm excited to be sharing more with the world of how do we use divination? How do we use this incredible map of the soul, right? That can just validate us instantly out of nowhere. And then also cut to the chase of our deepest hangups. And then proactively integrate with using the body, with using the power of the subconscious mind. And I just do know that in therapy, in like this angle of change work, of coaching, more and more people are coming into the integration of the spiritual element of um, being human and our just it's being just we're getting repositioned into spirit being at the forefront, whether that's God, whether that's Jesus, whether that's Kali, whatever. There is some sort of overarching hierarchical Maslow's needs of needing to believe in something higher that's informing so much of positive change work that I'm seeing that just over the years, I think recently, the past year and a half, 2 years, I'm feeling more confident and comfortable with talking about spirit with people, with source with people. And more people are wanting that experience. And I think that's part of the psychedelic and plant medicine evolution that's happening in the planet.
Yeah. Yeah, there's certainly a massive shift and it's happening at such quantum levels, like the speed at which my own growth and evolution is happening. It feels like all of this like tension of the past decade of me exploring myself and like feeling like I'm just struggling. But like it like was like pulling back this arrow. And in this past couple years, it's like bing. If you can't see it, I just let go of the arrow. And I'm just in each year, the arrow is picking up speed. It's picking up velocity. And this year has been crazy. Quantum timeline shifts in my growth and it's embodied. It's all getting integrated so quickly. And I'm getting aligned with the right teachers and support systems and modalities that are like, I don't know, Jimi Hendrix finding the electric guitar. It's like, whoa, my soul can speak through this instrument better than anything else. Like that's coming to me. And it's wild.
Well, it does reflect in your chart, Josh, I will have to say.
Let's go there. Tell me more.
Yeah, so this is a phenomenal year. Jupiter moved into tropical Cancer in June of 2025, and I'll be there until June of 2026. And those who have natal Cancer placements or natal Jupiter in Cancer placements are having massive expansions of just what is the best pathway for them to live, to be. Jupiter is the teacher to learn from, and it is just a blessing of getting back into alignment. And it's particularly in this area that is ruled by Aditi, the great mother goddess. That is considered the origin goddess. And both of us, you and I, Josh, have this Aditi placement very powerfully in our chart. So we are nature oriented. We're oriented towards love and protection and guarding like what is true, to then like be guardians of love and goodwill for other people and healing for other people. So a lot of us are being blessed up by this very positive once in every 12-year transit.
Yeah, that certainly resonates. And yeah, I just love seeing you go from how you were just speaking about your story and everything and just like dropping right into, maybe you call it the more mental space, but it was just cool to kind of feel that shift. And you're like, well, that makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah, there's another thing going on with your
Beautiful.
chart too, which makes it an electric uh, hero's journey type of adventure as well, with the North Node in Pisces. That also, those of us
Mm-hmm.
with Pisces placements, me also, are being just thrown into the edge of like our creative friction. It's a very exciting time to say the thing, to do the thing, to put the work out there and have 0 Fs and just be unapologetic about it and
Let's go.
feel this freedom of expression at this whole new level.
Mm. Wow. So perfect. Like I just, released a post yesterday that the temple is open, the temple of soul body wholeness, my website that I've been mad scientisting with, my partner in crime, my business mentor, my business oracle, just released, and feel like all of these offerings I've been working on just got crystallized in these really massive ways, and the branding, and I'm feeling so good about it. And this podcast I just started doing, it feels so good. And what you just said, it's like, who am I speaking to my experience with this no fucks given experience? My vulnerability hangovers are minimal. And I'm saying some out there stuff. I was just crying on the podcast I did a couple days ago, like, and talking about birth trauma. And it's massive. So everything you just said, 100%. It's literally right now
Yes.
happening.
Yes. That's the beauty of Rahu, which is just taking us into where we need to grow and expose ourselves.
Whew. Okay. Let's land this intergalactic spaceship. Can you can you share a little bit about your current business, who you serve? I mean, you've shared it. I'm just maybe in a more crystallized way, and yeah, how people can get in contact with you, because you're amazing and you embody so much of this stuff. You've walked the trials and tribulations, and that's incredibly valuable.
Mm. Mm. Yes. So I am a hypnotist, astrologer, mystical lady friend to many people. And um, it seems that I'm helping a lot recently, this past year, but years beforehand, I could see this theme getting over the people pleaser, getting over the insecurity of the true self, getting over any fears of expressing the true self and um, relationships and career, owning desires, and also healing these myriad bubbles of anxiety, of habits and coping mechanisms that we can do in hypnosis. I just help someone change a lifelong disgust with people who chew their food a little sloppily, like smacking their lips.
Wow.
And we
That's
went to the
cool.
root
Yeah.
origin of where that imprint came from and shifted that. And we did all these other things just in the one session. So I try to just go to the root of any and everything that's bothering the energy and emotional body, while also freeing up the truth so that we can live in alignment with our Dharma, with our truth. So I have little packages and I do group programs time to time. I'm on Instagram with my name, Brooke Underwood Energy. And I think Substack also, you can find me there, is relatively new, but I'm there and would love to connect with anyone who resonates with the field I'm creating and receiving.
Right on. Beautiful. Brooke, this has been an amazing conversation. I had no idea where we were going, and I couldn't be more pleased with where it went. Just want to thank you and thank the listeners. And yeah, I wish everyone a blessed holiday.
Blessed be. Thank you, Josh. Thank you, everyone.
Blessed be. Thank you for joining me on the Soulbody Wholeness Podcast. If you like this episode, you can support the journey by rating and subscribing wherever you listen. I invite you to follow me on Instagram at Soulbody Wholeness for more insights and to stay up to date with my current offerings. And if you feel called to work with me directly, I invite you to visit my website at www.soulbodywholeness.life. I offer somatic alchemy sessions and soul purpose initiation journeys that awaken your inner healer, reconnect you to your innate wholeness, and ignite your soul's deepest purpose. I invite you to carry this resonance with you as you move throughout your day and return anytime you need a reminder of your courage, your wholeness, and your light. Blessings, old friend.